back to Making the Brand with my friend Bill Watkins. It's been an honor to get to know you over the past year, and I would say like just immediate gravitation and become fast friends. But can you give a quick intro on yourself?
Sure. Bill Watkins, Army brat, West Point graduate, Army engineer, served in several posts around the world, left the military for corporate America, left corporate America to start my own first company in the little bonus room in my cul-de-sac house. I built that to 5 companies, sold them in 2012, and then started a coaching company. And through that coaching company, I began coaching Bubba and helping Giver. And then I became active in Giver in 2019.
It's awesome. And it's amazing to me like your journey is inspiring, but just to see how many things you have your hands in, it's almost like every time I talk to you, you have something else. But how do you balance all of it and find excellence in operating with everything you put your hands in?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in balance. I believe a little bit in kind of the principle of Tai Chi, where you're ebbing and you're flowing. I think when people set themselves up for balance, they set themselves up for failure, because life is never balanced. Mm-hmm. The best example, I just visited my daughter. I have a 3-year-old grandson and a baby on the way. When she first had Theodore in COVID of 2020, her life went from single, couple, no children, to baby in the house. There's no way you can find balance with that. It all goes out the window. Now they have semi-balance, but they're going to have a granddaughter, or I'm going to have a granddaughter in May, and their life will once again move to unbalance, so to speak. So I think it's a matter of ebbing and flowing. How do you achieve excellence? Well, after our meeting today, I don't feel too much like I'm delivering excellence. But I believe in always setting high standards and choosing world-class over half-ass, and then finding great people to guide or to assist or to be part of achieving those world-class standards. I see it as stewardship, that with great power, so to speak, comes great responsibility, and I believe we employ people and we serve customers to the standards that they want, and therefore world class is the only option.
Yeah, I love that, world class over half-ass. So something I read last week was that your personality is essentially set by the time you're 14. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, knowing you for the past year, so much of what you're about was formed and molded from your time in the military. And so who was Bill Watkins before the military versus who is Bill Watkins now, after that time?
I think Bill Watkins's DNA threads can go all the way back to the stories that my mother will tell. We just celebrated her 91st birthday, and it's fun to sit around with my younger siblings and my mother and hear her tell stories of her, oldest child, of which now I'm about 70, so kind of hard to think of yourself as a child. But to her, she still remembers those stories. And the threads, go all the way back to a real quick personal story. I usually don't talk about myself unless it's relevant, but in this case, she tells the story of being called to the principal's office when I was in first grade, and the principal wanted to help my mother counsel me that don't be the first person to take your paper up if it's not done. But I was always watching the other kids in class, and I would race up even if my paper wasn't done, so that I would hand it to the teacher first. And from then on, I always wanted to win. I always wanted to stand on the podium. My military roots go all the way back to my father, who was a career military officer. He served in World War II as a Marine. And I still hear phrases or value sets or cultural beliefs that my father shared with us. All of us children, coincidentally, never wanted to go into the military. it was the antithesis of what we wanted to do when we were teenagers, but we all ended up in the military.
Oh, wow.
And my brother and my sister are both retired military officers. My sister married my West Point roommate. And so the threads that my father instilled at the dinner table and through his example in life have followed us all the way through till today. So much of the DNA that I express today, maybe in our meetings today, the way that I spoke or how I think, it all goes back to those common threads that my dad shared with us.
Yeah, so it began even before you ever even in the military.
I think
mindset.
yeah, it did. Just
Yeah.
because the military was part of our family. My mother tells the story of she was 21. My father was on his second tour in the Korean War, and I was born at the West Point Hospital, and I didn't even meet my father until about 9 months later, when he came back from that active duty assignment. So the military has been in our family all through that period of time, and so there was unconscious imprinting, and then of course there was conscious imprinting as Dad would speak to us or discipline us or teach lessons or whatever he did.
So you talk about winning and being focused on winning and that being an obsession. And I know you've talked about how that's kind of had a negative impact early years of business and just all in on business. Would you go, and I think you've also talked about like, what would you do? Like take care of yourself, sleep more, two different things. What would you do to strike that, I don't want to say balance, but with family life versus business life and just managing both?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the foundation of why I set up my coaching company the way that I did, is because I'm teaching and I'm guiding people who are the Bill Watkinses of 30 years ago to do what I did not do. And so I learned from my father hard work, and I learned from my father through his military service. And I remember my father would say, accomplish the mission. My father grew up in World War II, in the Korean War, in the Vietnam War. He had a couple of tours there. And so my father was all about accomplish the mission, because when you don't, then the military was, male only. So he'd say, men die. Well, I would hear that as a 10-year-old or as a 12-year-old. And so your mission, Bill, is to get an A+, or your mission is to hit a home run or whatever. And it became, I understand why my father was teaching me that. And it's done really, really well for me in life. Was on a couple of Olympic teams, and I've just, everything that I've touched has turned into gold, Joel. But any strength taken to an extreme can become a huge blind spot. And the blind spot that I had was the mission just became very cloudy. The mission, when my daughter was 3 years old, was getting my daughter in bed at 7:30, but my daughter was a 3-year-old, and she wanted to play with her duck in the bath. So was I the patient guy? No, I was the mission guy.
Right.
You need to quit being 3 years old. We need to go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Same thing happened with getting home for dinner on time. I'd miss dinners. Same thing with taking 3-week trips because I didn't have a lot of money back when I started my companies and I was away from home. So what I want to teach now is that there is a way to win at business, win at life, and win in the mirror, to do that at the same time. Now, most people don't do that, Joel. It's not popular. Work hard, I sleep only 3 hours a night.
Right.
I work on weekends. I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. This is what's popular. But you're a family man, and from your value set that someday that will become dysfunctional.
Right.
It was dysfunctional for me. Things have worked out okay. I have a great relationship with my kids, but we had to get through a lot of stuff. I ended up divorced from my first wife.
Right.
That was a very dramatic and traumatic occasion in our family. And so I vowed in 2012, when I sold those companies and then ultimately chose to develop this coaching company, that I would not let another human who chose to believe in me to go down the path that I went if I had anything to say about it. And hence this so-called ebbing and flowing between work, life, and developing your inner self.
And that's what excited me the most about Lions Pride and what you're building there, of just, it's not just business excellence and just growing and making more money and having a bigger team and having things. It's about, I mean, when I check in with Jeff, it's how you're doing in the personal life, how's your diet, how's your fitness, how's your family, how's work. So that part fires me up. So I think you've done it. So congrats on having that impact of using your story to help others go a different path. I mean, to the negative stuff, but then also follow your example on the positive stuff too.
Exactly. A lot of my story on the positive side has come from the negative. And I think that's okay. I think the only failure in life is when something doesn't go right, often self-inflicted, and then I don't learn from it.
Yeah.
I'm teaching a course now over the next 9 weeks called The Science of Happiness. And the science of happiness is based on some theories that have been well researched and well published. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to get above survival, but then we move towards self-esteem and joy and happiness and self-actualization. The Harvard study of adult development is the longest. It's been almost 8 decades of studying, I think around 800 men and women, and not deciding, but detailing the dynamics of human happiness over a long period of time. And I will tell you, work is not in that. It's relationships, it's finding satisfaction and purpose, it's relationship skills, it's enjoying, it's called joy or enjoyment. And a lot of us are like, I don't have time for enjoyment. I got to work. I got to do this. I got to get this project done. I got to sign this contract. But the science of happiness, for example, says that we're unconscious to the true dynamics and determinants of our long-term happiness. That if you're 40 and you have a fantastic relationship with a significant other or a spouse, there are 4 times greater odds that you will be happy at 80. The research is right there. Arthur Brooks wrote Strength to Strength based on all his research, and it just, all these tools are there for us as humans to decide today what I'm going to do for happiness. But when I was your age, you could have slapped 500 research papers down on me, but I knew exactly. I needed to win in my career, I needed to make more money, I needed to sign more deals, and then everything would be okay. Not true. Not true. And so that's why I'm that grizzly bear sort of person in people's lives, trying to wake them up to something they don't see. I'm that splash of cold water to say, what if I'm right, Joel? What if what you think is going to make you and your family happy and you're wrong? Do you want to go 2 decades and then discover that? I don't think you do.
That's powerful. And it's really forced me to think about a lot of things of my wiring, and it's just like work, put in the hours, grind, and that whole culture of, rise and grind, first one in, last one out, but just rewiring that you can be more productive in 4 focused hours than you can in 10 distracted hours, and just how you can use your time more wisely. So you had this exit. It's obviously like a big moment for you, because I know you've talked about the implications of that, what that means for you and your future generations.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm so impressed by is just you still have such a high motor. Like, there's no letting off the gas. Like, you're climbing Mount Everest one week, and then you're building this company the next, and then you're coaching at a tactical advance summit. Like, where do you draw the motivation, the inspiration from?
Well, my wife says I'm delusional.
Yeah.
She says Miguel Cervantes should have written another book after Don Quixote called Bill Watkins, because she says you're just She says, I don't know, and we've known each other since high school, so it's kind of a laugh between the two of us. And I'm approaching 70, and here I am still working with a lot of energetic and talented young people when every one of my West Point classmates is done,
Yeah.
so to speak. They're all taking cruises and serving in the church and mowing their lawn and stuff, but I think only one guy, a good friend of mine, is still working like me. So why do that? I think it comes from way back when Dad said accomplish the mission. And I think, we share a common Christian faith. I think God anointed me with a lot of talent and a lot of so-called power that I've honed over the years, and He gave me a drive to serve, have a generous heart. I call it radical generosity.
Right.
And I think, and this is a constant dynamic between my two inner selves of I want to serve my spouse, and I want to serve my children and my grandchildren, and I love being with Theodore. How old are your children?
7, 4, 1.
Okay, so 4. 3's not that far away, right? So it's a 20-minute walk. This was on Monday, 20-minute walk to the park. And because we were going to the park playground, Theodore scootered there, and it took 20 minutes. Okay, but toddlers, the toddler delay tactics, the TDTs, so coming back took 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, because he did not want to go back, and there was 5 million things to do on the way, and a rock to throw, and a dog to pet, and all this stuff. And yet, I wanted to be in that moment. I did not want to be rushed. But on the other hand, I needed to get ready for this meeting. I needed to do my thing. And so I waver back and forth, who am I serving?
Right.
But I believe that for each of us, whether you sell your companies and you're 60 and you're done and you go on cruises with your spouse, or you continue to work like me, I think we have to get crystal clear, and I think that's where on the one-page personal plan, we're defining, like, what is our core purpose? Like, what does that say on our tombstone?
Right.
And what does our 25-year desired life look like? And I think my life shows that I'm, like my son-in-law and my daughter asked me the other night, I don't know how it came up, but they were saying, Dad, and I know it sounds morbid on your podcast, but they were saying, and I don't know why they asked me, but somehow we got into, well, what will you be thinking in your final minutes? And I said, one, that everybody's okay. Donna, you, Theodore,
Right.
David, my son and his family. I said that that I have poured into those relationships, and then I have developed incredible experiences so that I have memories even if I don't have money. And with those things, I can flicker out and I'll be totally fine.
Wow.
And so I think if you relay that to what we've been doing today, I'm continuing to serve to make sure everybody's okay. I'm not going to let people down. The mission has to be accomplished because I think God called me to that.
Right. Oh, it's amazing. And in my house, I've been pushing my kids on this to be better than I am of finish the job. Like if you start something, you got to finish it, whether it's brushing your teeth or putting something away or basketball practice. Like you got to finish the job.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. So, so getting to know you and getting to know how you run your businesses, it's very like data driven, black and white. This is good or this is bad. So how do you balance like being data driven versus trusting your gut and listening to your instincts?
Not easy. Definitely not easy. I've trusted my gut a bunch of times, and I've probably been wrong as much as I've been right. And so I do believe in data, but to a point. On the Colby scale, I'm a 6 fact finder. So I'll gather data to a point, and then I'll rely on my intuition. If I go too much further, then I feel like I'm making too slow a decision. And so the 6 in me and the fact finder in the Colby A is gathering this data and making this analysis like we were talking about today okay? But in some things, we just have to go. In some things, we just have to say, we don't have complete data. We're not sure about the battlefield, but this is what we're going to do. And that's when, my top strength in Gallup Strength Finder is command.
Right.
And that's where I take command. That's when I make a strategic analysis and then I move forward. I think the beauty in that, Joel, and here's what I would do to the high fact finders out there are like, don't make me make a quick decision. And then the high quick starts out there are like, we just need to go, go, go. I think the magic in that is being willing to continue the analysis, to readily admit that there may have been a mistake, and then quickly pivot.
Right.
I think for me personally, that is much safer choice in leadership than aim, and then maybe fire.
Right.
I'm okay with the aim, fire, and then I'm like the OODA loop, observe it, orient, observe, decide, act, rinse, repeat, meaning go back and observe what we decided and then change.
One thing that my parents came over here from India in the 70s as immigrants, worked hard, very blue collar, multiple jobs to put my sister and I through school, and bearing the fruits of that. But it's funny to me when I'm with my mom and she's like, I don't want any of your kids to be business people, because she sees the hours and she sees the stress or she sees the risk. Would you want your kids or your grandkids to follow in your footsteps entrepreneurially?
Well, I didn't allow my kids to buy my company for that reason. The answer was no. The answer was, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I'll sell the company, I'll give you a bunch of money, and then you can go do your thing. But I'm not going to let you have the burden of dad's company.
Right.
That's number one. I have had both sets of children have started companies, sold companies. I have a son who's got a business over in Norway that he's developing, and it's just amazing to see what they're doing. And I would say that I answered this with my son this summer, and I answered this with my daughter the other night. I said, what I really want you to do is I want you to dig deep into your soul and find that place where you can be you, whether it's what dad did or not. You have my approval in any direction you want to go.
Wow.
I said, I want to support you. I want to cheer you. If you want to be an artist, if you want to be a librarian, if you want to be a corporate salesperson, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it really doesn't matter as long as I know that you've done some due diligence with yourself and you have peace. And then, for example, my son, well, both of them, they've pivoted into different things. Right. They did this, got bored with it, but it didn't work out or whatever. They sold the company, then they went and did this, and I think that's a great way to go in life.
All right, so last question. I think you already touched on it.
Sure.
Amazingly, actually. I always ask, 100 years from now, what do you want to be remembered for?
100 years from now, those three things. One, did I accomplish the mission, meaning like all the people that I deeply care about, that trust me, that care back, that I can love on? When my last moment and my last breath exhales, maybe they're sad, but at least they feel cared for, and that I left them in a good place, both relationally and financially. Did I, in the case of my loved ones, fill them with experiences and memories? In other words, was I absent or was I present? And then third, did I fill myself with memories? Like as my last moments, they say, well, your life rolls. What does it say? Flashes before your eyes. Is that like me working all the time? Or is that like Everest? Is that Kilimanjaro? Is that swimming the Atlantic Ocean? Yeah. Is that Olympic athletics? What is that? Because I think we can earn all the money we want, but you only have three things, Joel. You got time, you got money, and you got health. And these are dynamically changing as we age. We're all going to die. We just don't know when.
Right.
And so most people, including my 91-year-old mother, who is fit as a fiddle, but 91, of course she doesn't have unlimited time, but she's healthy, so she has more time. She has a ton of money. My father and her saved every penny, but she doesn't have the health so that she can use the time to spend the money. It just happens.
Yeah.
And so I think in every moment of our life, we should be saying to ourselves, you know, people say bucket lists. We should do bucket decades. So you say, hey, I'm 25. I don't have any family. Okay, I don't have tons of money, but I got tons of time, and boy, am I healthy. I'm going to go cross Australia and hitchhike. And I'll never be able to do that when I'm 40. I got a corporate job, maybe I have a spouse, I got 3 kids, a cul-de-sac house. So I'm going to go do that now.
Wow.
And so I think we're constantly, this is what I want, those 3 things. I want to be able to look at that and say, I managed my time, I managed my money, and I managed my health, and I would prefer to die with 0, meaning 0 money, but 1 billion memories for me and the ones that I love. So where do I want to be, or what do I want people to say in 100 years? That I did those 3 things.
Amazing. Awesome. Well spoken. Thank you for your time, Bill. And I appreciate it. And thank you for all you do for us and the entrepreneur community. So thank you.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
LFG. Thank you.